Have you ever felt like you're talking to a brick wall when you're using an AI? You ask it for something and the answer you get back is, well, it's just not quite right. What if I told you that the secret to getting those amazing, mind-blowing results isn't really about the AI getting smarter, but about us getting better at asking? Today, we're going to climb what I like to call the prompting ladder. This is probably the #1 question people have. You know what you want, but there's this disconnect. It feels like a translation problem, right? And you know what? In a way, it is. We're all learning to speak a new language, the language of large language models. But the good news is, you don't need to be some kind of coding genius to become fluent. Okay, so let's just dive right in with a super simple example. If you go to a language model and you just type, "the sky is," what do you think you're going to get back? Remember, this thing has been trained on a massive chunk of the internet, so its whole job is to give you the most statistically likely completion. And yep, that's exactly what happens. You get blue. Kind of boring, right? But now, look over at the right side of the slide. Just by adding 2 little words, complete the sentence, we've totally changed the game. Suddenly, we get a much more thoughtful, complete answer. This right here, this is the first rung on our ladder. Being specific about the task you want it to do. This is the absolute core of prompt engineering. So how do we move beyond these simple little questions? Well, a really great prompt is kind of like a great recipe. It has clear, distinct ingredients that all work together. We're not just going to throw stuff in a bowl and hope for the best. These are your 4 fundamental building blocks. The instruction is your verb. It's the action you want it to take. Summarize this, translate that, classify this. The context is the background info that AI needs to do its job right. The input data is the actual stuff you want it to work on, like an article or a user's question. And finally, the output indicator is so important. It tells the AI how you want the answer. Do you want it in a list, a table, maybe some JSON? You don't always need all 4, but the more of them you use, the better your results are going to be. All right, let's climb to the next level and see how this all builds. On the left, you've got what's called zero-shot prompting. That's just asking a question directly. It works fine for simple things. But for more complex tasks, you're going to want few-shot prompting, which you see on the right. This is where you actually give the AI a few examples of what you want. You're not retraining the model. You're just teaching it a pattern in real time, right there in the prompt. It's like showing a chef a picture of the final dish versus actually giving them a recipe to follow. Now we are getting to the really powerful stuff. What about problems that need more than one step to solve? This is where standard prompting usually falls flat, because the AI tries to just jump straight to the answer. But there's a simple little trick that can unlock its hidden reasoning ability. So take a look at this classic word problem. It seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? But when you just ask an AI for the final answer, it tries to do it all in one leap, and it often gets tripped up. As you can see right here, it makes a mistake. It calculates 11 instead of the right answer. But what happens if we add this one simple phrase to the end of our prompt? Just 5 little words. It seems way too simple to actually work, but believe me, this is the key that unlocks a technique called chain of thought reasoning. And boom, look at this. The AI doesn't just spit out an answer, it shows its work. It lays out the logic step by step, and in doing that, it actually self-corrects and gets to the right answer, 10. The big takeaway here is you're not just asking for an answer, you're asking for a process. This forces the model to slow down and actually reason, which dramatically improves its accuracy on complex problems. Okay, so our AI can now reason. That's awesome. But what about its knowledge? I mean, it's limited to the data it was trained on, and that can be outdated or just plain wrong. The next step up our ladder is to give our AI access to the outside world, to give it tools. The first tool we give it is basically a library card. It's a technique called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG for short. So before the AI even answers your question, this technique makes it go and look up relevant, up-to-date facts from a trusted source, like your company's internal documents or a specific database. Then it uses that information to build its answer. This is an absolute game changer for cutting down on those weird, made-up hallucinations and making sure the answers are factually accurate. Now, the next tool in the box is even more powerful. It's called REACT, which stands for Reasoning and Acting. With this framework, the AI can actually use tools. It thinks about what it needs to do, decides on an action, like search Google for this or use the calculator for that. It takes the action, sees the result, and then thinks again. This little loop, thought, action, observation allows it to solve incredibly complex, multi-step problems that need outside information or calculations. So we've gone from simple questions to giving the AI a reasoning process to giving it a whole toolkit. But what's at the very top of the prompting ladder? What if the AI could figure out the best way to ask the question all by itself? And that brings us to a technique called automatic prompt engineer, or APE. This completely flips everything on its head. Here, you use one powerful AI to just generate dozens, maybe even hundreds of different ways to phrase a prompt for a specific task. Then it tests all those prompts to figure out which one gets the absolute best results from another AI. It's literally AI optimizing how to talk to other AI. Pretty wild, right? And check this out. This is the proof right here. We all thought, let's think step by step was the magic phrase, right? And it's good. It gets around 78% accuracy on this test. But look at the prompt that the AP system came up with. Let's work this out in a step-by-step way to be sure we have the right answer. The difference is subtle, but that last little part, to be sure we have the right answer, it acts as a stronger command for the AI to double-check its own logic, and that consistently leads to better performance. It just goes to show you, the most effective prompts might not always be the ones we humans think of first. So we've climbed all the way up the prompting ladder, from simple commands to having AIs write their own instructions. And this isn't just a collection of cool tricks. It's a new kind of literacy. Honestly, it's a superpower for anyone who really wants to get the most out of these incredible new tools. So here it is, your new toolkit. Start by just being specific. If that's not enough, give it some examples. For the really tough problems, ask it to think step by step. To ground it in reality, connect it to knowledge with RAG. To let it solve real-world problems, give it tools with React. And for the ultimate performance, let AI help you optimize the prompts themselves. And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question. As these systems get better and better at understanding what we mean, and even optimizing their own instructions, what's our role going to be? We might shift from being prompt engineers to being more like goal setters or curators or creative directors in our collaborations with AI. The conversation is just getting started. So, what are you going to ask next?